Hey guys, I got the new expansion, the Conquest of Paradise, which allows you to have a randomized new world and introduces a way better colonization mechanic. Whereas instead of using your colonies for, um, like basically having to spend all of your time fighting rebels in your colonies whenever you have low stability and getting very little benefit from them, you still get very little benefit from them, but now they fight their own rebels. They basically count kind of as giant vassals that send you home some tariffs. Now, it's important to note that if you think you're going to get money from colonization, you're dead wrong. Colonization offers you access to different trade routes that you can send merchants to, which isn't super beneficial in the early game, but becomes crazy important later on. And they give you additional force limits and additional max manpower, and tiny bit of trade value and stuff like that. But they send you tariffs, but if you have colonies that span the entire continent of North America and South America combined, you would get maybe $5 a month in tariffs. Like, it's not a big amount of money. Now, eventually later on, if you have lots of China and you have lots of stuff in India and stuff, you can get up to like 14 or $15 a month from tariffs, but you can easily get to 150 or $200 a month from trade. So colonies are about trade, they're not about tariffs. Don't fool yourself into thinking that colonies are going to pay for themselves. Also, in the very early game, colonies cost a lot because setting up 4 colonies at once with 3 colonists is going to cost you $10 a month, which means that you need to get your income from somewhere. And like I said, colonies don't give income, so that means you need to get your income from the mainland. So I tried playing the colonist game as Portugal, I tried it as Spain, and I tried it as Sweden, but I find that basically I don't have the patience for playing a poor nation at peace with the world while colonizing, because setting up one colony takes like 10 years, and so setting up a large colonial nation over the course of 200 years it's basically just a lot of fast forwarding, and I don't like it. So I decided to do England and use England to start dominating Western Europe and like encroaching into the mainland, and then set up colonies as kind of an afterthought in the backfield. And I thought that would allow me to experience the colonization game while still having the fun of constant wars and all this diplomacy that I'm used to, because playing a strictly colonial nation, I don't think I have the stomach for it. So anyway, when you start as England, you start in a war you have 37 force limits, which means that if you ever have more than 37,000 troops, you have to start paying exponentially more for further troops. And you start out with 37,000 troops and 3 really good generals and about 24,000 manpower and about $240. You're in a war with France with the casus belli of claim throne, which means that if you win the war, you get a personal union over France, which means they become a giant freaking vassal who has many vassals of their own, which means that if you win the war, you can basically just declare war on people and then have France kill them for you. And it's insane. If ever there was a good position to start colonizing from, that seems like it, right? So I decided to try to win that war with France. A more typical early English start is to say, well, if they have 70,000 troops and I have 37,000 and I can't call any allies into the war, it makes more sense to just end the war now, give up, and then get an alliance with Austria and Burgundy and Spain and come and crush France that way. And sure, that makes more sense, but it's not nearly as cool. I'd much rather have a personal union with somebody than have to eat them piecemeal little bit by little bit. You know, it'd take hundreds of years to eat them piecemeal. Whereas if I win one war, I get to inherit their entire nation, which is crazy cool. So basically, with no assistance from anyone, you have to try to beat France, and that's a daunting task. But anyone who's ever played a small nation like Byzantium versus the Ottomans, or Venice versus the Ottomans, or any nation that lives in a mountain like Switzerland, or any nation that lives in a mountain like Savoy, or a lot of the stuff over near India, knows, or even Russia, knows that basically you can beat an AI without winning. If you have a much smaller army than the AI, all you need is a safe haven to hide in that they can't get to. And then you just need to win the war exhaustion plus attrition game. Right? So your goal is not to kill all of your opponent's troops. Your goal is to get your opponent to have a war exhaustion so high that they no longer want to fight you. And then to deplete their manpower to such an extent that they have 0 manpower, and every bit of fighting they have to do from then on is funded with loans. And then once they're in that position where they can only fight with loans and they have no manpower and they have like 10 war exhaustion and really low stability, revolts will start happening all over their country, and they'll have to go fight those, and that will deplete their manpower even further. So you don't actually have to beat a country to beat a country. Once a country gets weak enough, then its neighbors will come and kill it too. So that's the goal here. I need to get France up to 10 war exhaustion, and I need to deplete their manpower. So you'll see me occasionally opening the ledger to check their current manpower stocks, and you'll see me occasionally opening the war tab to check their current war exhaustion. And you'll notice I'm in 3 wars right now. I'm not just in a war with France. And this is because in order to get their war exhaustion up without getting my own war exhaustion up, I need to win every fight by a mile. I need to bait them into a mountain where they have 20,000 troops and I have 18, and they think that they can beat me, but they can't, and then they die, and I have a better general than them. And that, fights like that are the fights that I'm trying to take. And in order to do that, I want to have as high a base morale and discipline as I can. So I hired a discipline advisor, and I took out a ton of loans and got Protector of the Faith. Now, Protector of the Faith, especially Protector of the Catholic Faith, is crazy, because that means anytime any Catholic goes to war with anyone who's not Catholic, you get called in to be their protector. And if you ever don't answer a call, or if any of them ever loses the war, then you lose Protector of the Faith, and it costs $500, so it's important to try not to lose it for as long as possible. So, I got called in to defend against the Mamluks. I got called in to defend against Bosnia. I got called in to defend against Serbia. I got called in to defend against Morocco. And I'm not going to participate in any of those wars. I'm basically just hoping that the Christian powers that the other people attack can win the wars on their own. And if any of them ever loses on their own, then I'm going to lose Defender of the Faith, and that's going to be sad. So, luckily, so far in the 2 Defender of the Faith wars that I've fought, my side won without me doing anything. So that's cool. And then in the war with Bosnia, my side's going to lose, but they're not going to have the permission to get to the final territories. Like, they can't come over to England and start sieging up my territory. They're too far away. So even though they get like a 20 war score by holding the war goal, I just never accept peace, and eventually they get tired of being constantly at war, and they wait peace out with me. And that happens primarily when the person you're fighting doesn't have a navy, and it requires a navy to get to you. And they're like, you know what, you're right, I don't have a navy, you win. Later on, I try to do the same thing to the Mamluks, but the Mamluks are a giant nation, about the size of the Ottomans. They have a bigger army and a bigger navy than me, but they're really far away, so they actually keep sending their navy up here to attack my navy, and eventually they destroy my navy, and they start sieging up my territory and stuff. So I have to actually, I lose the war against the Mamluks and lose the Defender of the Faith, and it's ever so sad. So anyway, you may have noticed that while I am winning all of the fights, and while I haven't lost a siege on any of my territories, and I have gotten the war exhaustion of France to be higher than my own war exhaustion, and I've gotten their manpower depleted before I depleted my own manpower. I did eventually deplete my own manpower, and I did once your manpower is depleted, you have to start funding mercenaries, and mercenaries cost 4 or 5 times as much as non-mercenaries. So I eventually depleted my stockpile of gold, and so I had to start taking out loans. Then I needed to fund more mercenaries, because every non-mercenary troop that dies is never going to get replenished with 0 manpower. So every time some of them die, you have to consolidate the regiment and then add more mercenaries. So I am just as war exhausted as France. And finally, the killing blow to me was that Brittany took away their safe haven, their permission for me to put troops in their territory. I'm not sure why Brittany did that. Probably because I have a high war exhaustion and a low manpower, and so they thought they could take my territory. So they're like, well, if I can take your territory, why should I be helping you? Whereas Navarra, which is much more far away and much less strong, never took away their rights for me to hide in their territory. So at this point, I'm fighting with only mercenaries. I have stopped using regular troops at all, and every month I'm losing, several gold, and I'm taking out loans after loans after loans after loans. So I'm going pretty deep into debt. But the way I see it, if I can vassalize France, like basically the largest power in Western Europe, then I will be England plus France, and I will be unstoppable. So I don't mind taking the most loans that anyone can ever take in order to do that. I could have done this a lot better. It went really well for like a half an hour without me losing any fights. I keep pulling them apart, fighting them in the hills. You just saw a really good battle in the hills right there where France lost tons and tons of troops fighting me in the hills. And now I'm going to spread out a little bit more and replenish my stock of mercenaries. But at some point, I got overzealous and fought too far away from my retreat point, and they crushed my army and then eliminated it. If you crush an army and then you follow up and you attack again while the army is still shattered, it just disappears. So they killed like 30,000 troops in one blow. And I didn't want to start the game over at that point because I'd already been playing for half an hour. But really, if I wanted to do this perfectly, I should have started over. So anyway, I'm fighting from much more of a disadvantage than I need to be. If you micro this better, you could actually pull this off without having so many loans. So just not only is it possible to win the war, and I did it, but I did it after losing twice. I twice lost entire 20,000 troop armies. So anyway, we've reached the point here where I win basically because I just got white peace with Provence. And Burgundy just declared war on France. So the combination of those two things, Burgundy has like 50,000 troops, and without Provence, France starts with maybe 60,000 troops, but I've depleted them so much that they now have only 20,000 and no manpower and no money to hire additional troops. So basically France is crippled. They're still stronger than me, but they're definitely not stronger than Burgundy. Now, unfortunately, France gets Austria in on their side, so now it's Austria and France against Burgundy, and Austria starts sending troops to help. But hopefully, France will spend enough troops fighting Burgundy that I'll be able to kind of slip in the backfield and get a bunch of sieges up. So I still have to play this pretty cautiously because I am constantly taking out more loans. I'm constantly funding a bunch of mercenary troops. And I still need to remain Defender of the Faith, and I'm still in a terrible position, but it's just me against France. Nobody's trying to kill me. Burgundy isn't declaring war on me, right? And an important piece of this is that I've constantly been improving relations with Spain and Burgundy and Brittany and Provence and Orleans and anyone who might want to attack me, because I know that both France and I are going to have huge war exhaustion and a depleted manpower pool, and that is a trigger for the AI to attack anyone that they consider a rival that they don't have good relations with. So I make sure to keep good relations with anyone that might want to attack me. And so France gets attacked, but I don't. And I fought a couple more battles in here, but mostly I'm just going to start sieging stuff up. So the last piece of this is just going to be me constantly reading the war goals and doing research on what I need to, how much war score I need to get to win the war, and looking at the other wars with Bosnia and Serbia and watching Burgundy and Austria fight France, Burgundy fight Austria and France. And I think we can skip around because the tactical, like, how to maneuver against your enemy and pull them into the mountains and win fights portion of the video is over. And now it's just a matter of trying to get as many sieges as I can while Burgundy kills France. So this was really it was a fun war. It was a very challenging war. I actually think that if I was being a perfectionist about it, and I should have started over and tried again to do it with less loans. I figured while I was fighting it that it doesn't matter how many loans you take out, because once you get a vassalization of France, you'll be raking in the cash. But it actually turns out that you don't earn money from a personal union. So at the end of the war, I actually had to get rid of all of my ships and all of my armies and all of my advisors just to break even on paying off the loans. And I was able to play this game for 7 more hours, and I was able to take over all of France, and I was able to expand and take over much of Burgundy and win wars against Spain repeatedly and Austria and Aragon. But eventually I did lose because the Protestant Reformation came at a point when my income was just barely keeping afloat with the loans that I'd taken out. And once you get the Protestant Reformation, you have only 50% religious unity. You get revolt risk everywhere, and it just costs so much money to fight constant revolts that I wasn't able to keep up with the revolts, and my nation fractured and I lost. So do what I say, not what I do. It is possible to win this war. You just watched me do it, but you can win it better. You can win it without losing 20,000 army stacks twice. I think those 2 big losses that I suffered, if I hadn't suffered those, I probably could have won the war with only like 20 loans instead of 40, and then I could have paid off my loans a lot better. Another couple of mistakes that I made that led to me eventually losing the game was I integrated France 50 years after the personal union came because I could, and I thought that integrating France would give me so much more income that I would be able to finally pay off my loans. But what happens is when you integrate France, you do get much more income, but you also have to fight rebels on multiple continents, and you also lose the religiously unified, like personally stable, has no loans France. So I think it's better to just keep the personal union with France and let them fight the rebels for you while you focus on fighting rebels in Ireland and Scotland. Until you've finished the Protestant Reformation. Then after your nation is nice and stable, then you can unify France. So I would say that even with the loans, I still would have been fine if I had waited until after the Protestant Reformation to integrate France. But best case, fight the war better and don't integrate France until after you deal with the religious unity problem. So good luck and have fun doing this yourselves. See ya.